All right, let's call the St. Louis Park School Board meeting together for May 27th, 2014. Thank you, everybody, for coming and for tuning in now or later. We're going to start out with two spotlight items. The first one is a spotlight for the St. Louis Park 2013 Caring Youth, and that will be led by Lisa Green.
This year we had the 25th Annual Caring Youth Recognition Award. This award was started in 1990 by Doris and Roland Larson, who wanted to recognize young people in our community for their caring day-to-day and unselfish volunteerism. This year the event was held on Tuesday, April 29th, and we were able to hold it for free this year because we got many in-kind donations, including the use of the cafeteria and the auditorium here. And we had a very generous donation of food from Urban Sub. So what I'm going to do is read the names of the students who won. Each one of these young people was nominated by the organization that they volunteer for. And I don't believe anybody's here tonight, but just in case I read a name and you are here, come on up because we have a certificate. But I just want to point out that all of these students have already been recognized in front of their families and the community at large. So I'm just going to read the names of the students. Kim Lindgren, Lowell Mines, Kevin Ballinger, Jenna Bankin, Khadijah Sharif, Caitlin Glennon, Maison Gebre, Brock Hansen, Samantha Jermasek, Graham Kellogg, Dana Quincy, Ryan McCanna, Lori Myers, Katie Peterson, Zoe Peterson, Stephen Pearson-Nice, and Jessica Yarger. And thanks to all of them for all of their unselfish volunteerism in St. Louis Park.
And next is a spotlight for our 2014 retirees, and I want to do that one from the podium, so I'm going to walk over. We just came from a reception downstairs where we honored our retirees. We were able to hear from our superintendent and their principals and heard lovely stories about each of them and what a great service they have been to us and to our students here in St. Louis Park. We have this year 12 retirees. Together, Mr. Metz informs me, they have over 309 years of service to St. Louis Park, our students and our families, for which we are incredibly grateful. We couldn't do this without you. And of those 12, 3 were able to come up and join us tonight. And I want to start with them because I think the people that show up should get recognized right out of the box. So thank you for coming up. And the first person that I would like to have come up is Rhonda Jameson. And Rhonda served probably in many places, but finished up in St. Louis Park's Susan Lindgren. And I'm going to congratulate you. Rhonda has been with us for 22 years. And invite Rhonda to say whatever she would like to say, but I hope you'll include the book that you are having donated to the library on your behalf. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to work with these young children all these years. It has been a pleasure. They have enlightened me, and I hope I have enlightened them as well. And I hope that you will always keep the arts in the public schools. It has helped so many children, especially some of the children that might not exceed in other areas, and it sometimes just brings out the best. And so please always keep it alive. We were asked to donate a book to the library, and so to the Susan Lindgren Library, I have donated, or I should say, I have asked to have donated the Freddie and the Frog and the Thump in the Night. It's a series of books that introduces the treble clef and the bass clef to children, and there's a puppet that comes along with it, and we have had great fun with Freddie and his search of the treble clef island. Thank you very much.
And next, I would like to ask Jean Miller to come up. Jean Miller has also served our community and our students for 22 years. Jean, thank you. I'll get it. Thank you. Here you go.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with the families and my colleagues, the wonderful educators at St. Louis Park Schools. And I selected through Ellen George, the librarian at the high school here, I selected the storyteller, it's called, and it's Jody Pickholt. Thank you very much.
And the next person that is here tonight that I'd like to invite up is Mary Bloomgren. Mary has over 36 years of service to our students and our community and our families. Mary, thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to be working in St. Louis Park. I've always felt that this is a community that cares a lot about its schools, and it's the children and the parents in the schools and the teachers care a lot about the community. I don't live in St. Louis Park, but I've always felt like it has been home. When you start somewhere when you're 21 years old and stay with it for such a long time, it really is your home. It has been a pleasure. I have met so many good people, and they have taught me so much. I can look around the room and see all of the things that I've learned from the people that are in the room. But perhaps the people that teach us the most are the little ones. And that has been truly an honor to have that opportunity. The book that I chose to have donated to the Park Spanish Immersion Media Center is called Bats in the Library. My husband just asked me, when you talk about the old bat in the library, is it truly a bat or is it an old bat? It's truly a bat. It is the story of the bats that fly into the library late at night and get lost in the stories in the library. And that's always been my goal, is to help the children that I read to get lost in the stories. And I wish you that in your future. So thank you very much for the opportunity to have spent time here.
And I just want to read, let's get a picture. Yeah, why don't you?
All of them.
Yep, we'll do all of them, but let me read the rest of the names, and then we'll take the, let me just read the rest of the names of the retirees, and then we'll take a picture of our special group here. So we have Ellen Giordano, 21 years of service, finished, because they often served in many different capacities, so I'm just going to name the last job, as an ESL teacher at Aquila. Elizabeth Dahl, for 20 years of service, and she's finished at Peter Hobart. Jeremy Reilly, who is a social worker for St. Louis Park and has served in many capacities in our district. He served us for 28 years. Lee Abrahamson, for 32 and a half years of service to the St. Louis Park Public Schools. She finished as a social worker at our high school. Deb Porter, for 31 years of service to the St. Louis Park Public Schools. She was in special education at the high school when she finished her career with us. Marcy Edgar, for 25 years of service to our St. Louis Park Public Schools. She finished as a grade level coordinator at the high school. Tom Morris, who served us for 23 years at the district. He was our plumbing repair specialist, and that matters. And Karen Casey served us for 33 years, and she was a child care group leader at Central when she finished her career with us. And Kathleen Weiss served us for 16 years. She was a para-educator at the high school. All of those years of service add up to 309 years and made a difference for every one of our students. So thank you all again, and we wish you the best in the next chapter of your lives. Thank you. Now, you may go and have a lovely evening and the rest of a great summer. Superintendent says you're not quite done yet, so we'll see you tomorrow. So next on our agenda is the agenda. And what we have today is the call to order, approval of the agenda, open forum, the superintendent's report, discussion items that include the Susan Lingman Elementary School Annual Report, International Travel High School Spanish Group, teacher evaluation discussion, policy development, second reading of policy 417, the chemical use and abuse policy. We have the consent agenda, and on our action agenda, we have request for approval of the International Travel High School Spanish Group, request for approval of the teacher evaluation plan, request for approval of professional technical personnel employment contract 2013-2014, request for approval of appointment of school board representatives to various, school board vice chair Julie Schweitzer to the City of St. Louis Park Telecommunications Committee, request for approval of appointment of school board member Joe Tatalovich to the City of St. Louis Park Planning Commission for a term ending December 31st, 2014, request for approval of reappointment of James Beneke to the City of St. Louis Park Parks and Rec Commission for a term ending December 31st, 2016. And then policy development, second reading, policy 417, chemical use and abuse, and policy 419, tobacco-free environment, followed by communications and transmittals and adjournment. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Is there a second? Second. So moved by Karen, seconded by Bruce. All in favor? Aye. Carries 6-0. So the next item on the agenda is open forum. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to the board? I just would be able Thank you. If you just want to step up there to the microphone, and you're welcome. And if you would just introduce yourself by name and address, then we'll all know who you are. And our open forum guidelines are 3 minutes, and Cindy Bennett, who is our executive secretary, helps keep track of that. Okay?
Yes, my name is Frank Friedman. I live at 2530 Pennsylvania Avenue South. And I'd like to talk about a proposed public-private solar garden community consortium. Solar gardens are clusters of solar panels that produce electricity and do not contribute to the global climate changes. One community solar garden is being developed for Minneapolis, and it's funded by private investors who hope to make a profit from it. Solar gardens are being used to power remote commercial installations where it's too costly for the power company to run lines to the facility, so they're using these cluster solar gardens to power these remote facilities. Xcel Energy plans to offer grants this fall. They see this as a means of meeting the state's mandate for alternate energy sources in the future. Now, here's what I propose, that Carroll Hurd Park, City Park, be converted to a tree-lined field where a large solar garden would be installed to power at least several city and school district buildings. A solar-heated hothouse would be installed in 1 or 2 unused school district field areas. A Lenox Seniors Garden Club could be formed for year-round hothouse activities. High-risk city children could attend a hothouse educational camp year-round. Food grown at the hothouse could be used for school district meals and STEP clients. One hothouse could be installed literally in the school parking area, and to make room and with valid exceptions, possibly space could be made available there if some students had to carpool. Why a community consortium? Well, if you think about what granting and bonding agencies might look for, I think something that's multi-purposes, broad in scope, is far more likely to attract funding than will be any proposal to power a couple buildings for a city or school district. So that's why I'm proposing such a broad thing. I've also listed some other benefits that can be derived from a consortium besides the cost saving. As an early stage project, a grant request could be made this summer, and I'd be glad to pitch in many hours to do that, to fund a hothouse at Lenox as a pilot project, growing vegetables year-round, having a garden club, and contributing this step. Private investment may or may not be feasible. I've listed some preliminary planning information. I'm working with a top-notch consulting group, and I'm done.
Frank, thank you very much for coming with your idea, and you did give us all a handout that laid out the parts that you didn't probably get to finish with, so we really appreciate that.
So I just need some feedback in the future from you.
Thank you, thank you. And then, anybody else here to speak to on open forum? Okay, then next on our agenda is the superintendent's report. Mr. Metz?
Good evening, Chair Gores and everyone in attendance. I wanted to just highlight a couple of things for the public. Note that the board held a retreat a week or so ago, and at that retreat we covered several topics. They included how to close out the current 5-year strategic plan that's coming to an end and transition into a new strategic plan. We discussed the superintendent evaluation process. I had a chance to share some of the work that I've been doing this year, some of the big rocks, as I call them, that were tackled this year, and plans for next year, and get some feedback on those. And the board also discussed committee and liaison appointments that they undertake. So the board retreat was a half day. It was a good morning and time well spent, I think. The other thing I wanted to announce is that we have sold Elliott School. The old Elliott School, after years and years of work, has been officially sold. We had our closing, and I wanted to thank Sandy Celine for all of her work, and Jim Yarosh, a board member who's not here tonight, who donated quite a bit of time in this effort, and all the board members. So thank you, everyone that was involved in the selling of Elliott School.
Thank you, Hob. That was quite a long process with the city and the neighbors on what they might like there at Elliott, and then the process of finding a buyer, and the process of negotiating with that buyer, and the process of the buyer working with the city for approvals of the plans, and the process of the buyer getting financing, and all of that took longer than many of us would have hoped, but thanks to Sandy Celine and Jim Yarosh and others with a little bit more real estate expertise who stayed the course, we managed to get it done, and so we were all just ecstatic that it finally closed, so thanks for letting us know. It has been brought to our attention that we did not follow up on the closed session that happened at our April 7th meeting pursuant to the open meeting law. During that session, the school board and superintendent discussed the June 30th, 2014 expiration of Kimberly Hergott's contract. And next on the agenda, we get to hear from Frank Johnson about the Susan Lindgren Elementary School Annual Report.
Hi, I'm Frank Johnson, the principal at Susan Lindgren, and this is Kelly Etienne, who is our TOSA. And we're here to give last year's annual report folded into this year what we've been doing. So that's why it's called 12-13-14. We present this report in the context of district strategic objective number 1, Skipped one. Which is that all students will achieve the knowledge, skills, and passion and attitudes to meet or exceed the rigorous academic standards without demographically predictable results in order to succeed in their future. 2 years ago, the state of Minnesota got a federal exemption from AYP and created instead a 3-part measurement system called Multiple Measures Report. And last year, Susan Lindgren was measured in these 3 areas. The first is proficiency. Schools can get up to 25 points in proficiency based on how well we're doing in reading and math in each of 8 subgroups. So you get points for each subgroup, each subject, up to 25 points. And we earned 24.99 points, putting us at the 99th percentile of Minnesota schools. The second multiple measures report is growth. In that case, they just take the growth of every student, 4th and 5th in this case, because 3rd grade is the first year they're tested, so it's 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and then that growth is averaged and compared to the other schools in the state. And we earned 23.68 points in that measure, putting us at the 95th percentile of Minnesota schools. The third measure is closing the achievement gap. It's up to 25 points again based on how well we're closing the gap in reading and math. It's computed by comparing ethnic subgroup growth to statewide white growth and LEP sped and free and reduced growth to non-LEP sped and free and reduced growth students. We earned 16.75 points in that category, putting us in the 67th percentile of Minnesota schools. So we had a mixed bag in multiple measurement, did very well in 2 areas and have room to grow in closing the gap. Kelly's going to talk about our reading performance.
So this is our sight reading goal that's given to us when we start every year. And these were our results. As you can see, we fell short overall, much so with our black students, but unfortunately that was consistent with what we saw overall in the state of Minnesota last year with the change to the new MCA 3 in reading. So what we've been doing over the course of the past 2 years to work on that, we've continued to work on our, integrate our literacy into our units of inquiry. And we adopted, the district adopted a writing curriculum last spring. And in order to become ready for that, I worked individually with team members to plan for those writing lessons so that they fit with our units of inquiry and our central ideas, along with the benchmarks. And additionally, we found mentor texts to model the writing style or element or such as a hook that the students would be learning within the writing curriculum. So for example, the 3rd graders recently wrote opinion pieces within their How We Organize Ourselves unit of inquiry. And their central idea within that unit is citizens contribute to maintain a community. And there was a parent in the classroom who was an entomologist. And so she came and spoke to the students about colony collapse. And this hit the kids really hard. They really took that to heart. And they wrote opinion pieces about the reasons why we shouldn't use or we should do certain things to protect the pollinators. And in addition to that, they took all of their ideas and wrote a shared writing that you'll see in the Sun Sailor coming up soon from Jennifer Cowan's class. So they were also taking action, which is an element of good IB planning and units of inquiry. You can also see that we continue to purchase level books because we know it's important that students read when they're reading independently at an easy level, that a level that is comfortable for them so that they are progressing forward when they're not supported by an adult or a mentor reader. We also had our literacy team continue to work on our school-wide reading. Additionally, we continued our We Read Every Day program, which is sending home books from the classroom at the independent level for students to read at home. And we implemented the Read Well by 3rd grade plan that was a district plan and all the elements that were a part of that plan within our reading program last year. This year, all right, 2013, we implemented in grades 2, 3, and 4, along with ELL, the Fountas Pinnell Leveled Literacy Instruction Program. And that program was chosen because there's a need for students who are not eligible for reading intervention but are still below grade level and need intensive focused instruction. And what this instruction provided was a direct intervention for the teachers that was well researched and has been very successful for us this year. The youngest learners have been making amazing gains, moving along in their ability to read, and even our oldest, most reluctant readers ask to take the books home, which is shocking. So we're really excited about that. We'll see where that goes and what we can continue to do with that. Additionally, as I said, we worked on the writing curriculum. And we also, with the guidance of our new Director of Teaching and Learning, implemented the achievement level descriptors, or as we call them, the ALDs. And we're continuing this work into next year. And the achievement level descriptors have given our units of inquiry a clearer focus for reading comprehension instruction. And it's interesting because when I work with groups of students or talk with teachers, I hear lots of talk about inferring now. I was sitting with a second grade student and she said, well, I think I can infer that. So I know that we're using the speak that's being introduced to us from K to 5, which is really exciting to see and hear. RAS Kids, so that's from Learning A to Z, and that's an online reading resource. And in the past, we've used it primarily as a way to, again, supplement reading material for our students to take home for reading at home by printing the books. But they recently moved to an online program, and we purchased that for a 1-year subscription. So every student has an account that's managed by their teacher. And the students are assigned books along with comprehension quizzes, and they earn points and things like that, so it's motivating for the students. And the students, or the teachers rather, can track their students' use, and which is primarily at home, and how well they're doing. And then they can revise the instruction and have the students retake quizzes or read more books with a certain genre or a certain achievement level descriptor that they might be working on, such as drawing conclusions or something to that effect. It's available to the students this summer, which I'm really excited to see. And it's amazing because they have all their things available in Spanish. So we can send the letters home to the families in Spanish without having to pay for translation, which is wonderful. And one other thing that I was a little concerned about, but they've added apps so it can be used on any mobile device, which is amazing because then if you don't have a computer at home, you can still use it on your mom or dad's phone, which is wonderful. So we'll be excited to see what kind of use that gets over the summer and if it helps some of the summer slide that we know that happens with students in reading. During our PLCs for reading, for the past, last year, the kindergarten and first grade teachers, I call them test bunnies, but anyway, we worked with the University of Minnesota basically as test bunnies for them to figure out how to do their early reading program. And it's an assessment program that assesses all the different aspects in early reading, which are primarily phonics or phonemic based, which is the auditory part of learning to read. And so this year, this was the first time it was computer based, which was amazing for our kindergarten and first grade teachers to see, because they've never had access to data in that way. They don't take the NWA map test. They don't have those kinds of things. When we do assessments with kindergarten and first graders, most of the time it's one-to-one, of course, as you imagine. They can't, knowing the letter names or letter sounds has to be done in that way. And additionally, figuring out all the data, we used to just do paper pencil and make our own graphs and figure out where the holes were. It was a lot of work, but that's how you figured out what you needed to do for instructional purposes. So this year, all of that is online, and it has individual benchmark graphs, and it's been really exciting for the teachers to see that. It helps them understand more specifically what they need to do for overall instruction in their classrooms, and additionally, what particular groups of students need as far as intervention. And along with that, there's a progress monitoring tool. So that's been a really big implementation this year, and something that I think the teachers have really felt good about. We also added, in line with many things at Susan Lindgren, the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment system. And that's a diagnostic assessment. So that would be used with a student who isn't progressing in the way that we would hope, or we often use that with a new student to our school district that doesn't come in time for our screening tests. So it just gives that teacher information about where that student needs are in their instruction. We also included our reading intervention and EL teachers in PLCs, which was also something we started last year but has been powerful and we've continued to do.
I had a question on the reading thing.
Sure.
The first one was the benchmarking of the students, and you can see it online. That's great that you have that available to you. Are the goals for the individual student, is it as the growth patterns are typically seen in an individual, or is it more of a growth pattern based on what the state mandated tests are, growth, much like what we're seeing in the other numbers?
Both.
Both.
So if a student is not, so you can see where the student is as compared to the benchmark, what they're supposed to attain in order to be on track for reading. But if a student isn't on track and we put them into progress monitoring, then they create a goal on a graph with a trend line. Typically it's between 1 and 2 words or letters a week, depending on the student and what they're working on. And then you can see how they're tracking towards that goal of meeting the benchmark in the end, which has been a really nice thing too as well. Does that answer your question? Thanks.
In math, our goal last year was that 78% of our white kids would meet the state standards, and in fact 71% did. And our goal was that 61% of our black students would meet the state standards, and 47% did. You can see in the next graph that all of our groups improved last year. We had gains in all groups. We're pleased that the gap was narrowed some. In 2012, the gap was 48% between black and white students. And in 2013, the gap was 36%. So we were on track to close the gap in 5 years that way. Our math action in particular was what I would call classic PLC action. In the fall, 2 years ago.
Frank?
Yes.
Can I ask a question? I think I missed the graph, but on the reading you had a projected for FY15, I think. Did you for the math?
Excuse me, projected for?
Or what the goal would be for 2015? In reading you had that 79%?
This was 11, 12, 13 comparison.
Okay.
So it's up to the end of last year, the MCA last year. In our PLCs in the fall, we determined the 7 to 10 critical outcomes at each grade level. In other words, what are the 7 to 10 things, not the 30 to 40 or 50 things that you teach in math that are so important that we just have to do them. And then if you look as a whole staff, we worked that together with K-5 teams. The whole staff came together and agreed from grade level to grade level what those things would be. And it caused us to have really good focus in math. We implemented our district math expressions pacing guides, and we also reviewed map data fall and winter. And then we attended our first district math workshop under our new curriculum director.
So in IB, which I guess to me is kind of funny to say separately because everything we do and who we are is IB, it's not separate. But the work that we did in regards to IB. We finished our first evaluation last spring, and we received the report last summer. And we got 18 out of 48 commendations, which kind of doesn't sound like a lot, but when I talk to other area metro schools, sometimes they get 0 with lots of matters to be addressed. And we didn't have any matters to be addressed, and we had quite a number of commendations. So I felt better after I talked to other people. One of the commendations that they talked about was our commitment to constructivist, inquiry-based approach to teaching and learning. Among the recommendations they have for us are some of the ones that they always continue to train our people in IB, but they also mentioned that we need to have our teachers using the written planner as a living document. And using the Google domain has helped this a lot because it's a live document that we can share. Teachers can access it at any time, and along with any of the specialists who are a part of that program. So that has been part of our work. They've also asked us to refine and add more assessments, which is something that we're going to focus on next year. And when I speak of those assessments, they mean any kind of assessments that we do. So additionally, the ones we do in reading, but any assessments that we would do within content of science and social studies as well. And they also want us to adapt so that our students can demonstrate their learning in various ways. That's sometimes tough. You know, a lot of times assessments and things end up being paper pencil. So we're trying to think broader and bigger and deeper and do a lot of the assessing and demonstrating their learning in various ways. So this year, we updated the action plan based on what we learned from IB. And I think that's one of the powerful things about being part of an organization where someone from the outside comes in and looks at your program, because it gives you fresh eyes to see what you can make improvements on. So that's been a really powerful thing for us this year. So based on all of those recommendations, we began to clarify and organize our lessons for the units of inquiry. When we first started the IB journey, we call it Box 4. It's on the planner. It's where you actually write what you're going to teach. It was left to be a little bit, I would say, loosey-goosey. It was kind of a menu, they said, of items that teachers could select from. And we've moved more towards guiding teachers and teams through the units in a more pragmatic and systematic way to still get the students to become inquirers, but also so that if a new teacher looks at that planner, they know what that means and what they're supposed to be teaching. So that's taken a lot of work and time that we've used in release days, half-day release days within our school day. Also incorporating the work that Carrie has asked us to do with the achievement level descriptors has been another big piece of that. And we still have more work to do, but when you look at that Box 4, our learning box, it's much clearer and it makes a lot more sense, and teachers are teaching similar things. It's not a menu any longer. Let's see. Next year, we'll move on to the assessments, as I mentioned. And I think another thing that was powerful, they mentioned in our report, was that our specialists become collaborative members of the inquiry process of teaching the units of inquiry. And so our specialists have this year, they've joined in during the planning of 2 units of inquiry, and next year they're going to add 1 to 2 more, with the goal that by the time IB comes back to see us, they're teaching 6 units of inquiry, as all of our teachers are. So as one really wonderful example of that, our physical education teacher, Jody Stefanowitz, hooked in with our 5th graders on their How We Express Ourselves unit, which is where they analyze media and its influence on us. And she took it from the perspective of role models. And she had the students serve as role models for the Jump Rope for Heart program that they do in the school. And the students were mentors to help the little kids during the event. They made posters. They were on Mr. Johnson's announcements telling heart facts. They made a video at the end. And how much money did we raise for that? It was like $13,000. Crazy. So it was really powerful, and the kids felt really as role models, which we would hope they would, and they were also, again, taking action. So, thanks. say anything before we do the video?
And now the video. Maybe.
Let's see, I've never had to do it on a little screen like this. Let's do this. Why is it doing it this way? Sorry. Sorry. Oh no, now we have the beach ball. Never a good sign. I can't see the button to play it. Maybe not. Oh, there it is. Here we go.
Before the days of Jello, lived a prehistoric fellow who loved a maid and courted her beneath the banyan tree. And they had lots of children, and their children all had children. And they kept on having children until one of them had me. We're a family, and we're a tree. Our roots go deep down in history. From my great-great-granddaddy reaching up to me, we're a green and growing family tree. My grandpa came from Russia, my grandma came from Prussia. They met in Nova Scotia, had my dad in Tennessee. Then they moved to Yokohama, where daddy met my mama. Her dad's from Alabama and her mom's part Cherokee. We're a family and we're a tree. Our roots go deep down in history. From my great-great-granddaddy reaching up to me, we're a green and growing family tree. Well, one fine day I may go to Tierra del Fuego. Perhaps I'll meet my wife there and we'll move to Timbuktu. And our kid will be bilingual, and though she may stay single, she could of course go mingle with the king of Kathmandu. 'Cause we're a family and we're a tree. Our roots go deep down in history. From my great-great-granddaddy reaching up to me, we're a green and growing family tree. The folks in Madagascar aren't the same as in Alaska. They got different foods, different moods, and different colored skin. You may have a different name, but underneath we're much the same. You're probably my cousin, and the whole world is our kin. We're a family and we're a tree. Our roots go deep down in history. From my great-great-grandmother reaching up to me, we're a green and growing family tree. We're a green and growing family.
And any of you who have ever been to an assembly at Susan Lindgren know Family Tree. The kids know that, so that's an iconic Mr. Johnson song.
It's a wonderful song.
Any questions?
My question really could be for any school, but you mentioned that one of the materials you use has letters to families translated to Spanish. Do we have, are we able to get translations for our many other languages where families may need that, our East African families, that kind of thing?
We do some Somali and some Russian. And I would say giving us a C in that category would be generous.
So that's something we as a
I think
district
we
can
need to do
improve
better.
on.
Right. We need to do better. We're working on getting telephone service in many languages, so we can automatically have interpreter, and we don't have that right now. And we're working on, we are getting more documents all the time, but we still have a ways to go.
But I'd also say, I think that, not that the other isn't important, but our EL teacher speaks Spanish. So pop something into Google Translate, she looks it over, bang, it's out within 5 minutes. I mean, we just had kindergarten assessment last week, and she came, and thankfully she was there to sit and talk with our Latinos families and speak Spanish with them, and it was really, really helpful. So that's just, ease.
Spanish is one of the easier ones these
Right.
days, but
Absolutely.
like Google Translate doesn't have Somali or Hmong or other languages.
We have 18 languages at Susan Lindgren, and families from 33 countries, so a lot of potential there.
Thank you.
I'm interested in your math scores. Also, higher than the reading scores. I think that's unusual. Joe and I were looking at that. I don't know that I've ever seen that in any other school, but maybe I did and I just don't remember it. But I think, by the way, as a math person, I think that's wonderful. But the thing I wanted to point out, and you mentioned it, Frank, but the change is pretty amazing. The gap in the prior year was 48 points, and this past year was 36 points. That's an improvement of 25%. And it was almost a perfect storm because the white students improved and the black students improved, but the black students improved at an incredibly good rate. And I mean, that's an improvement of 20 points from the previous year. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it and do more of it, because if you can do that every year, pretty soon we in fact will close the gap. So I want to congratulate you on that, and good job.
I had a couple of things here. It was nice to see those first few slides where you're doing the higher percentage, 99 percentile of the state and 96 percentile of the state, but yet we're still slipping on the achievement gap, which only a statement, not a question. It's just interesting in that we can grow or be at the top of the game for the state, but yet there's still that gap that's there. And then the other question, I know this is bringing you back a couple of slides, but on the reading slides, I thought, I looked down and I looked back up and I just saw a slide that looked a little different than the ones that we received, in that it had, I think it had a 2015 goal of 79%.
The reading test, we don't have comparative data because that was the first year we did the MCA 3. But I don't see anything about 2015 on here, but we'll be getting those soon enough.
Maybe it was my wishful thinking.
No.
So, and never mind about the question.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Finish strong.
Just leave it.
And next on the agenda is the International Travel High School Spanish Group. Superintendent Metz is going to lead us on that one.
Thank you, Chair Gores. Our Spanish team from the high school is here, and I'm going to introduce Jane Hudasik. I think she will introduce her team. Jane, you can go on up, and they are requesting permission to go on a trip just a few weeks away to Panama.
Hello, I'm Jane Hudasik, St. Louis Park High School Spanish teacher and World Languages Department Chair. I'm here tonight representing and here to talk to you along with 3 of my 4 colleagues in the Spanish area to talk about our trip to Panama. If you guys want to come up as well. So along with me tonight is Hannah Anderson, Rocio Sotelo, and Leah Mark. We've organized our presentation, the who, what, when, where, why, and what about safety and preparation. That's what we're going to try to cover the basis for you, and then we'll field questions if you have any at the end of our hopefully fairly short but thorough presentation. So we, the Spanish teachers at the high school, wanted to offer an opportunity to both traditional language learners and students from the immersion track the opportunity to experience culture and language firsthand in a Spanish-speaking country. We had traveled 2 years ago to Spain, and we had a very successful trip. And so this year we wanted to, 2 years later, we wanted to offer an opportunity in Latin America in case there were some students who had participated in the Spain trip previously, if they wanted to participate this year. And indeed we have one student that is participating had participated in 2012, that's participating in 2014. So we as language and culture teachers feel that it's extremely important that we offer our students the opportunity to use language and experience culture firsthand. We believe that it opens the students' minds and hearts beyond the classroom to gain multicultural perspectives and a global awareness.
Hello, I'm Leah Mark, and I am going to talk about our student participants. Our group consists of 26 students, 20 girls, 6 boys, all 9th through 12th graders, and 12 of our students are of minority. And the group that is leading us is called Intercultural Student Experiences, otherwise known as ISE, and Jane is going to continue talking about that.
So we're the 4 of the 5 Spanish teachers, so I just want to let you know we represented all of the different levels that we offer at the high school. I myself teach Spanish 3 and Spanish IB, and I'm the World Language Department head. Leah Marks teaches Spanish 2, Spanish 4, and Conversation and Culture. Rocio teaches Spanish 2, Spanish 7, and Spanish 8. And Hannah teaches Spanish 1, Spanish 9, and Spanish 10. So we wanted to offer, encourage students from all of our different levels to participate, and in fact, we did meet that goal. We have chosen to travel with an organization called ISE, which is short for Intercultural Student Experiences. And the reason why we chose them is because their focus is on language and on culture. The program that we're offering is a 1-week travel program conducted entirely in Spanish, and then a family stay component. So we wanted to have both the cultural and the language and the family stay component as a part of the program that we offer. ISC provides the logistical support of organizing the trip. They organize the flight, the hotel, the family stay arrangements, the reservations and recommendations for historical and cultural visits within Panama. They are involved with leading the student leader application process for participation in the program, the health insurance through core travel, and a rigorous code of conduct for both students and co-leaders. And we all need to participate and agree to adhere to the code of conduct to participate in the program.
Hello. What? A 14-day educational travel and family stay program to Panama with an emphasis on language learning and gaining cultural experience firsthand. And where? We're going to spend some days in Panama City. We are traveling from June 16th to June 30th. We're going to start in Panama, but we will also participate in day trips to Panama City to nearby sites of historical and cultural interest. As a group, we will participate in the educational travel portion of the trip the first week. Then the second week, each student will stay with the host family for 6 days. In our itinerary, we are going to visit the Panama Canal, but also to indigenous communities, and we're going to visit Chitre, and the students are staying in Chame with families for 6 nights.
What about preparation and safety? So related to preparation, students and parents have participated in up to 3 parent-student meetings. One a year ago, essentially, pre-trip, student interest meeting, and then again another one in the fall, pre-trip, pre-organizational meeting, and then just last week we had a meeting for pre-departure with parents and students in attendance. We've also had many student informational meetings, between 12 to 15 by the time we leave on June 16th. At those meetings, we deal with different cultural, linguistic, logistical questions and issues, along with fundraising. We focus on different cultural topics as well. The students participate in preparing those meetings and determining the agenda of those meetings. In addition, we, 4 co-leaders, have participated in a workshop in January that was sponsored by ISC, in which they gather teachers from around the country who are participating in various travel, student exchange type experiences. So in that meeting, we were able to both receive professional development related to cross-cultural communication and understanding, as well as plan our specific trip to Panama. Related to safety, the ISC Code of Conduct is rigorous, and in addition to signing off both parent and student, it needs to be notarized. We also, the students and parents need to sign off on the St. Louis Park liability form that I'm sure that you're aware of. And the students are covered with medical insurance through ISC. There's a $250 deductible. The students and parents receive booklets related to what's covered and not. They also have a buy-up option to extend, if they're going to be staying on in Panama, to extend their trip coverage while they're in Panama, or to increase coverage. I would like to read the Code of Conduct, because I think that is one of the reasons why we really decided to travel with ISC, because it's a rigorous and very complete Code of Conduct that we ask the students and parents to sign off on, as well as we as co-leaders adhere to. So the Code of Conduct reads as follows. I realize that while on the ISC program, I am representing my country, my community, my school, and my family. I will therefore strive to conduct myself in a manner appropriate to being a good ambassador. I accept and understand the ISC Code of Conduct as listed below and pledge myself to honor it. There's 7 points to the Code of Conduct. Number 1, I will commit myself to improving my communication skills in the foreign language and speak it as much as possible. Number 2, I will cooperate with my leaders and honor the rules that they set for me regarding curfews, punctuality, sign-out procedure, behavior in hotels. Number 3, I will dress and act appropriately at all times and be sensitive to the impression I'm conveying in a culture other than my own. I will refrain from acquiring any tattoo or body piercing. Number 4, I will refrain from use of alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. I will not accept or transport any of these. Number 5, I will refrain from romantic sexual involvement of any kind and any behavior leading to it. Number 6, for my own safety, I agree not to operate any motorized vehicle or be a passenger on any motorcycle. Number 7, I will not purchase or carry knives or any other article that may be considered a weapon. Violation of this Code of Conduct abroad will result in the student being sent home at the parent's expense. You will be notified if such a decision has been made by the leaders. And the student, the parent, and signs off on this document. We bring it with us to Panama in case we have any Code of Conduct violations and we need to address them. Also, any type of behavior that might be not quite exact code of conduct violation, but perhaps hearsay about potential activities or comments or things like that. So again, it's a code of conduct that we consider, that we take extremely seriously, as does ISC.
Good evening. So how much does this program cost? The cost is approximately $3,000, and it includes the flight, hotel and family stay accommodations, health insurance, entrance fee to the planned cultural visits, as well as several, but not all meals. So not included would be 5 meals, passport fees, and personal expenses. And based on financial needs, some students received financial support from ISC to attend. They deducted between $200 to $600 of the total cost of the trip from this final account. We've done some fundraising. By the time we travel, we will have fundraised around $3,500 to help offset the incidental expenses such as tips, cultural activities, meals that are not included in the program, gifts and cards for the host family, etc. Some of our fundraising activities have been a Valentine's chocolate sale here at the high school. We are also doing the cup food stand. We are doing a Chipotle night, June 2nd. Cup food, June 2nd and 3rd. But most important, we've gotten a very generous grant from a foundation through one of the parents who has, written the grant. So, again, we're hoping to get to help students with most of their extra expenses. And finally,
lastly, the benefits of the Panama trip. Participants gain an international perspective and experience. They experience total Spanish language and culture immersion firsthand. Students and I will get to meet, get to know, and share everyday life with their very own Panamanian family.
thank you. Questions?
So you said there was a mix between the immersion students and the non-immersion students. I wonder if you can go into a little more detail about how many from each path. I don't need an exact number, but I was kind of curious.
Okay. Well, I have about 4 students in the traditional Spanish program, so the non-immersion, and the rest. So we have 6 total. Mm-hmm. We have 6 total. Out of the 26.
Great, it sounds like a great opportunity. How many chaperones would be going? You 4?
Yeah, there will be 4 of us, and I will also be staying in the town where the students will be staying with their families. I signed up to stay with the family as well.
In addition to us 4, we will also have an on-site land operator guide when we're in Panama. Also, we're going to visit an autonomous community, so it's called a comarca, so Indian Native Reservation. So we also have a guide there. So we're visiting 2 different indigenous communities in which the students and we will have to enter with our passport because it's an autonomous community, and experience life and get to know a little bit more about their culture, which is well preserved and accepted and celebrated in Panama. So that's one of the reasons why we picked Panama, because of the indigenous autonomous communities.
Sounds like a fascinating trip, and I love to hear you talk about it. It's about language and it's about culture. Sometimes people think foreign language is just about the language, and it's so much more. It's language, culture, it's awareness, it's self-reflection. It's such a great opportunity for personal growth for the students. I was curious about the homestays and how, whether the students will be with those families and just in their routine for the whole week, or whether they will have access. How will they have access to one of you if they need that?
So ISC works with a land operator in Panama, and they have a contact, generally speaking a teacher, that organizes family stay. family stays. So the families are interviewed, there's home visits, so that the family knows what to anticipate, both of our students, and our students know what to anticipate from their families. Our students have written personal letters of interest introducing themselves as students from St. Louis Park High School, the United States, that are interested in learning about Panama and sharing with their everyday life. The families are instructed to just go about their business as usual, so their daily routine. They don't need to do anything special. They don't need to play tour guide for our students in any way, shape, or form, just to share with our students their daily lives. The families are oriented about food preparation and bottled water, which there can be some gastrointestinal, some issues with travel, but then too in the tropics there's some differences there, so the families will be providing bottled water and then following the food preparation protocol that's set forth. Also, the students will have health insurance with them, medical insurance, and they'll have a medical card with them. So if there were to be a reason that they would need to go to the hospital or see a doctor, the families too have received instructions on how to manage that. The students know that they are to bring their medical card with them. If the student and the family or the student can contact the Family Stay Coordinator, the Panamanian Family Stay Coordinator, and the students are instructed to contact us first, so we will have a cell phone and we will be accessible. Leah will be living in the community. It's a very small town, so she'll be living in the community. We will be within a few minutes bus ride, taxi ride from where the students will be.
It sounds more like an immersion. Each family would have one student in their house, and then you would occasionally have events that you would go as a group? Or?
So the first week will be travel together, so we'll be staying, our evenings will be spent in the same hotel, but 3 different hotels. And then the second week, that each student will have their own Panamanian family. They'll be living 1 student per family, but it's in the same community. The community is called Chame, and Leah as well has asked to be to have a host family, and so Leah and every student will have been selected by the family to stay with them for the week.
But we will not see them until the last day when we return.
So students are instructed to, of course, if they have concerns, questions, problems, to contact us. Families, of course, have access to telephones. Also, the Panamanian family, if they were to have concerns about their student, like not eating or something like that, or the student seems excessively tired or something like that, generally speaking, the Panamanian families will probably contact the Family Stay Coordinator, who's Panamanian. The students would probably contact us, but we would be in communication, both the Family Stay Coordinator and the families and the student. So we will do many role plays in preparation with the students on what's an emergency and what's simply just a cross-cultural issue, homesickness, things like that, a crisis versus a concern.
Nancy, while the teachers are up here, and especially Jane Hodasek, I want to embarrass her and recognize her, because the Spanish program at this high school is the best Spanish program in Minnesota, and I'm not making that up. For those people at home, to offer 10 levels of Spanish from level 1 all the way through level 10. And Hannah Anderson there on the right, who's teaching level 10, very, very high level of Spanish. I want to congratulate Jane, because this is no easy task to organize a Spanish department that teaches 10 levels. The visual symbol of having all 10 levels here is key, because combining the former PSI graduates, the immersion students, with the non-immersion students into one program at the high school, and all going on a trip together, is quite an accomplishment. And it goes without notice, but I can tell you it's not easy. It's very complicated. And she's done an amazing job as a department head of all world languages. One of the things I'm most proud of about our high school, we talked about it a week or so ago with music, where band, choir, orchestra and theater all thriving together. Same thing can be said of world languages. We're doing well in Spanish, German, French, and Hebrew, all being successful and all working together, which again is no easy task. Sometimes it can be competitive and trying to keep students and grow your program. And the fact that they're all being successful is a credit to Jane and all of the world language teachers at the high school.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob, for sharing that. And I would say that our mission statement includes that we want to provide multiple pathways to excellence. And I think what you are doing in this particular trip and in the World Language Program in general is really helping us fulfill that mission and provide multiple pathways for our students. So thank you very much. It sounds like it'll be a great opportunity for everybody.
And we will be back. So post-trip, we will hopefully bring students to share some of their experiences with you and to encourage you to, again, in the future, to approve future trips, because it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for many students that will open up their lives to continued travel and language learning. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gracias.
Next on the agenda, we have teacher evaluation discussion. And Mr. Metz is moving to the podium. He's going to lead us on this.
Sarah, I may need help with the Elmo here. Are you an Elmo expert? Yes. Okay, good evening, board members. After following the wonderful Susan Lindgren report and celebrating the excellent success of the Spanish program at the high school, and really a K-12 Spanish program, I am now here presenting something that's exciting to me, maybe not to too many people, but it is to me, the new tenured teacher evaluation system. And I have here on the first slide, the important part about this slide is the top part that says it was developed with K-12 teachers, Park Association of Teacher Leadership, building principals, and school district leadership. This was really a collaborative effort. Last board meeting, 3 teachers were here presenting. I'm filling in for them today. But creating this was something where we sat down together. We started at the beginning of the school year, and we met nearly monthly all the way through the year, and now we're at the end of the process. So tonight we're asking for you to approve this plan, and the teachers are going to be voting the last week of the school year to approve this plan. The plan has several components that are required by the legislation, and you can see them here. All tenured teacher review plans in Minnesota for next year have to have a peer review process where teachers review other teachers. They have to include a 3-year cycle. They have to provide a time for or opportunity for individual growth and development. There has to be a summative evaluation at the end of the 3 years, and the teachers need to create a portfolio. The data that teachers are partially evaluated on has to be longitudinal. It can't be just 1 year. Student growth has to be considered, and professional learning communities have to be part of the plan. Staff development is included, along with a teacher improvement process for teachers who are not doing as well as we need them to do. And possible discipline for teachers not making adequate progress. All of this is a requirement of the legislation, and our plan has all these components. We created a belief statement. It's a little bit hard to read, so I'm going to read it for the people at home. And this was agreed to by the committee. We believe the collaborative process of developing a teacher plan will make the plan stronger. We believe in continuous growth and improvement for all educators. We believe the evaluation process should be clear and consistent for all educators in our district. We believe high-quality teaching with a focus on equity has positive impact on student achievement and will help us in closing the achievement gap. And we believe our local plan will need to be regularly reviewed and updated as professional needs in the district change. So there is going to be an ongoing committee next year that's going to be meeting quarterly. Basically, it's going to be the original committee that developed this. We'll be back together meeting quarterly to update the plan. We're expecting, as are many school districts in Minnesota, that the first year through the required tenure teacher evaluation plan will cause us to make changes and adjustments as the year goes on. Now, the meat of this is there are two components that teachers will be being graded on, so to speak. The first component, component 1, involves teacher practice and student engagement. And 65% of their evaluation will be based on this component. So as far as teacher practice, there will be an observation by a principal using a form that we currently use in our QComp system now that will evaluate the teacher on their instructional ability. We'll talk more about the rating that comes from this in a minute. And there will also be student surveys. Now, we've had teachers use student surveys in the past, but this is the first time that student feedback will be part of their evaluation and that every single teacher will be gaining feedback from their students. We're using a variety of surveys that we're borrowing from other districts that have been practicing this and giving us some good advice. So whether you're a high school teacher or a kindergarten teacher, your students are going to be evaluating you at least 2 times a year. The second component, which is going to be worth 35% of their evaluation, has to do with data. How well did the students perform? Again, this is new, and sitting down and looking through the data and deciding how we were going to determine a teacher's evaluation based on their student performance was a little tricky. We came up with 3 pieces of data that are going to be used. First of all, the district is going to set a goal, and by the district I mean me. So I get to set a goal for the whole district that has to do with student data. And that goal is going to count for 15% of this, of the 35%. So whether the district meets their goal or not, the teacher would either achieve or not achieve 15% of the 35%. 10% is going to be based on a building goal. So each building at the data retreat in August will set a building goal that has to align with the district goal. So if the district goal is to close the achievement gap in a certain area, then the building goal has to align with the district goal. The building goal can be a little more precise and be aimed at a targeted group of students. But that will be the second point that's looked at. And finally, the third is 10%, which is the professional development plan for each individual teacher. Each individual teacher's personal goal has to be aligned to the building goal, which has to be aligned to the district goal. So in the end, they're going to get a score or a rating in all 3 of those. If the goal is reached, if you exceed the goal, that's going to be a 4. If you meet the goal but don't exceed it, it's a 3. If you make progress but don't quite meet the goal, it's a 2. And if you don't make any progress or go backwards, it's a 1. And in the end, teachers will get a score in each of those 3 areas, and they'll be basically averaged together to get a composite score. So in the end, teachers will be receiving a holistic score in both of those categories. In component 1, the teacher practice and engagement, the evaluator is going to assign that teacher either a 4, 3, 2, or 1. In student data, the evaluator is going to assign that teacher either a 4, 3, 2, or 1. We're trying to use a holistic point of view here because a lot of things get included in the evaluator's decision. So it's not a math problem where we're calculating numbers. It's really a true evaluation by the evaluator. The evaluator has the ability to look at a state rubric that describes what does a 4 look like. If this teacher were a 4, what kind of things would I have seen as an evaluator? If this teacher was a 3, what kind of things would I have seen as an evaluator? We have a support plan in place. If a teacher receives either a 1 or a 2 in either area, the evaluator may initiate a teacher support plan. It doesn't say that they're required to, but it says that they may. So there's a lot of things that come into play when you're talking about receiving a 1 or a 2. And I'll give you a quick example that's very relevant. So I may be teaching an IB class at the high school where literally every student is going to perform exceptionally high on any assessment we give them. The chances of me getting a higher rating are going to go up. If I was an ESL teacher at an elementary school where I'm doing great work, but my students are more than likely not going to score as high as a mid-range student in that school, no matter how well I do, they're not going to make that much progress that quickly. One of the issues we faced is how do we compare the work of those two teachers, both highly valued, both very good at what they do. So receiving a 1 or a 2, the evaluator may decide to put that teacher into an improvement plan. If they do, we gave some examples of what could happen. The evaluation is a 3-year evaluation, and only the 3rd year does the principal do an observation. So one of the consequences of getting a 1 or a 2 is the teacher may be put back into the observation cycle immediately. In other words, repeating year 3. They may be in line to receive some more professional development and higher degree of mentoring. So there are all kinds of things that could happen if a teacher gets a 1 or a 2, and a support plan is one of the possibilities. And then we quickly made a timeline of what this will look like, and I think this is important to understand. Year 1 and 2, each teacher is going to be observed 3 times by a peer coach. And in our case, under our current QComp model, it would be the QComp building instructional leader that would do the peer evaluation. 3 of them in year 1, 3 of them in year 2. At some schools where we're using equity coaches, the equity coach would do the 1st year and 2nd year observations. So the principal is going to come in the 3rd year and do that final observation. But in year 1 and 2, the peer mentor is doing those observations. Also in year 1 and 2, the teacher is building a portfolio where they're going to be putting in a variety of pieces of information, including their student engagement results. Once the students give feedback to their teacher through a survey, the results of that survey are automatically dumped into their portfolio, along with a variety of teacher reflections on their work with equity, their professional development, and so on and so forth. The 3rd year looks slightly different because the 3rd year is the year that the principal comes in. Still, the peer observer does the first 2 observations in the fall and in the winter. The principal comes in the spring and does the final observation, looks at the portfolio, looks at the 3 years of student data, and meets with that teacher and does the summative evaluation. So across the state, because of legislation, the new tenured teacher evaluation system is coming online next year. And as I said, I think we have a pretty good plan. It was developed collaboratively with teachers, administrators, and district office staff. And I'm here to answer your questions and looking for your support later to approve this.
Rob, could you say a little more about the student engagement? Is that just the student ratings, or is it an observation of student engagement in class? Because that's something I'm interested in, just because in this, some reading I've been doing, it gave advice to parents, and it said if you want to learn how to choose a teacher for your child, don't talk to other parents, don't talk to other teachers, walk into the classroom, sit and observe student engagement. Are they engaged with the lesson?
Right.
And that's something I'm very interested in, if we will measure that, and I think that's an important part of this evaluation system.
Well, in this case, student engagement really means student feedback to teacher. So the part of that is, how engaged are you in my class? Do I know where to go if I have questions? Do I feel comfortable asking a question? What kind of instructional strategies are you using that help me the most? So think of it as student feedback. So twice a year, every student in every class, from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, will give feedback to their teacher, and that's what it means here in student engagement.
Okay, then a follow-up question then. Is there a part on the bill when the bill observes the teacher, is there a part in that observation on engagement in the classroom?
There is, and you're giving me an opportunity to do an advertisement for equity coaching. I'm a big believer in equity coaching, and as the board knows, I'll be back here in 2 weeks, hopefully, to give you an update on revising the school district's QComp plan. We're going back and forth between using bills, building instructional leaders, which we currently use, or equity coaches. And I believe I'll be back here in a couple of weeks with a proposal to use a little of each. The reason I favor the equity coaching model is exactly what you're referring to. The first thing the coaches do when they come in a classroom and do an observation is they don't look at what the teacher's doing, they look at what the students are doing. So they're checking off and watching and tracking what are the students doing. And that's the beginning of the basis of the coaching conversation, rather than what the teacher is doing. It sounds simple, but it's a big shift in mindset, and I'm excited about it.
Me too.
You have 3.
Thank you.
So Rob,
Yes.
does this plan only apply to our tenured teachers?
It does, but it's going to have an impact on our probationary teachers. And for the public at home, probationary teachers means typically first 3 years. So the first 3 years a teacher is on duty, they are probationary. They have not earned tenure yet. And during those first 3 years, they are observed by the principal 3 times a year. So 9 times in total over their first 3 years. They're also observed by their building instructional leader 3 times a year. So 9 times over those 3 years. And they're also in year 1 and 2 observed by a mentor 3 times a year. So they get a lot of people in their classrooms those first 3 years. The principal is the only one that's doing the evaluating, though. The teacher side of it is coaching and helping. When the principal comes in, they're evaluating. Once you're tenured, then this kicks in. Now what we're doing is we're combining and sharing these new forms we're going to be using. So whatever form we end up using with the tenured teachers is also going to be used with the probationary teachers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Great amount of work on this.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Next on our agenda is policy development. It's the second reading of policy 417, chemical use and abuse, and policy 419, tobacco-free environment. So let me just see. We have the chemical use and abuse, which is policy 417, and then the policy that is the tobacco-free environment is policy 419. Let's just start with the chemical use and abuse policy. Any comments or discussion on that policy? And then the next policy we have is policy 419. It's the tobacco-free environment. We talked about this last time, and there was a question about e-cigarettes, and then today we have a redlined MSBA policy here. And so, Julie?
Yeah, and my suggestion will be, but not yet, that we table this for consideration because there are a lot of changes here. But, and I found a couple of just typo kind of edits, but I think we do need to have this as our discussion meeting because there is language in Roman numeral 2D that's not required by law but recommended, excuse me, proposing that we agree not to solicit or accept contribution or gifts from companies that manufacture and are identified with tobacco products, including electronic cigarettes. And that may or may not be a good idea, but I think that's the kind of thing that we ought to talk about today and then have at a second meeting the actual adoption language, whether we go for that or not. I'm personally inclined to think it's okay. I don't think it's been an issue for us before, but it's something we ought to think about seriously.
Thank you, Julie. Any other comments? Yeah, Julie, just on the D, whether we want to limit contributions or gifts, I'm a little uncomfortable with that because I don't know how broad that is and how company owns company, how far down the chain, how much of a small interest could some company have in something that we're saying we're not going to take a gift or a grant. That makes me uncomfortable because I don't know the consequences of it, and so I would be inclined, just in our conversation, to not be supportive of adding D.
It does say directly manufactured and are identified with, but that may not be enough to solve those questions and are worthy of further consideration. Frankly, I don't know that it's ever going to come to our attention, be something that we'll actually have the choice about, but again, we just got this at 7 o'clock, or we've been doing other things, so I'm not sure what my position is.
Right, that's
So maybe I should, at this point, move to table it, since there wasn't any further discussion, and table it for our next meeting.
the motion to table. Is there a second? There's a second by Karen. Any further discussion on that? All in favor of tabling any action on policy 419, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, we've decided to table any action on policy 419. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Joe. Is there a second? Seconded by Ken. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Carries 6-0. Now we are up to our action agenda. We have a first item on the action agenda is a request for approval of the International Travel High School Spanish Group. It is recommended that the school board approve the request of international travel for the SLP High School students to travel to Panama June 16th to June 13th, 2014. Is there a motion?
We'll move approval.
Julie, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Karen. Any discussion beyond what we've had earlier in the meeting? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Carries 6-0. Next on the agenda is a request for approval of the teacher evaluation plan. It is recommended that the school board approve the teacher evaluation plan as proposed. Do I have a motion? Motion, is there a second? Second. It's moved by Bruce, seconded by Ken. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Carries 6-0. We have a request for approval of the professional technical personnel employment contract. It is recommended that the school board approve the employment contract between the independent school district and the professional technical personnel for the 2013 and 2014-15 school years. Sandy, are you going to tell us about this?
Yes, this is our professional technicians group, and it was a great negotiations with a lot of good conversations. The main changes in their negotiations contract is monetary. There was very little, just basically cleanup language, no changes, major changes in any language items. The parameters were met as far as the monetary parameters that were set by the board.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve that contract? Moved by Bruce, seconded by Ken. Any discussion? Well done on keeping these moving. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Carries 6-0. Next, we are up to action items on appointments to the City of St. Louis Park various commissions. We have the opportunity as the district to have several representatives on various commissions, and we are, following our retreat, we're getting our finalizing some of those. Some of these people have been attending already, but we're getting the formal action in place. And so it is recommended that the school board approve the appointment of Julie Schweitzer to the City of St. Louis Parks Telecommunications Committee for a term that expires December 31st, 2016. Do I have a motion? Moved by Joe, seconded by Karen. Is that all right with you, Karen?
Just a point of procedure on the voting here. I would plan to abstain here, not as a protest, but just as a, although I've already found out they might be setting extra meetings, so. But anyways, just as a point of protocol, since we have several appointments tonight, if that makes sense, that's what I'm going to do, and others can follow if they wish. Just in case this was a really important appointment, it would be important to abstain and still. But I'm finding out they do important work, and with Time Warner buying Comcast, there will be changes.
Oh.
So there is important work to be done.
Now we know who to talk to if this carries.
I know who to talk to in the city. So.
Is there any other discussion on this particular appointment? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
I abstain.
So it carries 5-0 with one abstention. Next, it is recommended that the school board approve the appointment of Joe Tatalovich to the City of St. Louis Parks Planning Commission for a term that expires December 31st, 2014. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Moved by Ken, seconded by Julie. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Carries 5-0 with one abstention. Next, it is recommended that the school board approve the reappointment of James Beneke to the City of St. Louis Park and Rec Commission for a term that expires December 31st, 2016. Do I have a motion? Moved by Karen. Is there a second? Second by Joe. Is there any discussion?
Just want to thank Jim for being willing to serve a second term on the Park and Rec Commission on our behalf.
Yep, this is a reappointment, and I understand he's acting as chair of that commission this year, so we really do thank him. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Carries 6-0. Next, it is recommended that the school board approve the second reading of Policy 417, Chemical Use and Abuse. Is there a motion? Moved by Joe, second? Seconded by Ken. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Carries 6-0. Well done. Now we are up to the communications and transmittals.
Thank you. We really had a great week in St. Louis Park. I want to commend David Burr and Michelle Stark, their middle school teachers who helped lead the third annual middle school day of service. And we had kids who painted fire hydrants, cleaned up buckthorn at Westwood Nature Center, visited the Villa Nursing Home, made cards for kids at Children's Hospital, worked on an anti-bullying project, cleaned up their own building, attended 2 different Feed My Starving Children sessions. So the kids were really engaged, and it hits our mission statement and objectives that all students will voluntarily and continually contribute to society, and this really exemplified that. I was really proud of the kids I worked with at the Villa Nursing Home. They did a great job of showing their IB characteristics of some risk-taking and caring, and Randy Moore, the band teacher, did a great job of prepping the kids to go into that space. The other thing I want to highlight, Asset 26 in Children First Assets Caring. We have some new asset champions that I'd like to congratulate. They completed their training on May 22nd with Karen Atkinson and Nancy Tellitz-Royce. Their names are Justin, Lisa, Gordy, Lee, Andrea, and Karen, a different Karen. So thank you very much for becoming new asset champions in our community.
Anyone else? I'll jump in. Last week was the 1-year anniversary of the events that took place at Lilydale, and many of us, in fact, I think all of us, at one point or another have been involved with Peter Hobart and the journey that they have been on. And last week we were there quite a bit, putting our arms around the school, and it was really a week of remembrance and gratitude, as the principal Shelley Nielsen, summarized it. And it was very moving on many occasions, and the community was present. All of our school communities and all of our larger community really, in one way or another, stepped up and really let that school and its children and its staff and its families know how much we care about them. And I think over the year they have done amazing things there to deal with the tragedy, to heal, to grieve, and to teach and learn from that experience. And I was just moved and touched and impressed by the quality of care that went on last week. And if you read about any of it or saw any of it on the news, it was really a good experience, if you can say that, out of a tragic event. And I think it was healing for the particular families who lost children. I think it was healing for everybody who was involved. And I really want to thank everyone who played roles in making that happen. In particular, I want to thank Sarah Thompson and Shelley Nielsen, and they know whoever else was involved, and Rob for helping coordinate and giving people the support they needed, and for your presence there quite often during the week. So that was quite the time for us. The other, switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about Parktacular, in that if you're a senior, there is the Parktacular Senior Gala Dinner that is coming up on June 12th, and it looks like they want reservations in by June 6th. So if you were thinking about going and you happen to be watching, now would be the time. And the music is being provided by a former neighbor of mine, so I know it's going to be great. And the last thing I wanted to say is there are lots of events happening as we come to the end of the school year. And one of those events is May 29th, and it is it's the choir concert and the senior recitals. And so those seniors who wish to perform a solo are given the opportunity to do so. And when I've attended in the past, it's always been quite a wonderful time. So I just would lift that up for people who might be looking for a wonderful evening this Thursday, May 29th. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Bruce. Is there a second? Second by Ken. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.